because when you bring a property which is renovated, which is furnished, which has everything included, you bring value to a lot of people that are actually looking on a market where there's not enough.
So today I have Geoffroy Reiser. He's the Managing Director Europe for a company called Masteos.
Hi, Alfredo. How are you?
I'm fantastic, man. We've worked together before in the past in a different project. I'm super interested in what it is you're up to now. I see that you've taken on the Managing Director role. The first thing I have to ask is, how do you say the name of the company?
Oh yeah, name of the company is Masteos.
Masteos.
Which is easy for Spanish people. The name itself is it's of Greek composition, if you like. It doesn't mean anything in Greek, but it has like the letters that inspire stability and stuff. And the company itself is we help people like you and me to invest in real estate. And when I mean invest in real estate, it's actually buying a rental property. So you need for that the different jobs, let's say, and package them all. So find the properties. So for that, you need property finders on the ground that are looking for the opportunities for the best flats to buy. You need renovation, a team that is able to, change the bathroom, maybe do an integral renovation, depending on what's needed to be done. You need a team to decorate, furnish, take care of all of that. And then you need the property management. That's basically the 4 services you need if you want to do a one-stop shop for rental investment. And I help people like you and me to buy at the moment in 3 countries, so France, Belgium, and what's more interesting to us, Spain, especially. You still live in Malaga, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Costa del Sol. That's where I'm at.
So the team at Masteos, taking France and Belgium and Spain together, it's a company of 400 employees. So it's pretty big now, considering that the company was created 3 years ago. So not that long ago. Started in France in 2019. End of 2020, one of my best friends told me, hey, I'm buying a building with 3 flats as a rental investment in the north of France with Masteos. Do you know them? And as you know, I've been in the prop tech industry for many years, working in the property portals industry that you're a strong expert of. And when he told me about that, I was very interested because a lot of the property portals, as you well know, are trying to get closer to the transaction. So they try to take a commission, they develop seller leads project. So property owners that want to sell their house, that are going to, the property portal is going to sell that lead to a real estate agent to facilitate the meeting and whatever. And Masteos itself from day one was a commission-based business because it was a real estate actor, but on the buyer side. So that's what I found pretty interesting is in Europe, the whole real estate market is basically seller side. Nobody takes care of the buyer. Nobody wants to take care of the buyer. And what I found super interesting is that I don't know if Idealista did a similar study, but at least Realtor.com in the United States and List Globally and ProperStar for the foreign buyers did some surveys about trying to find out how many of the leads, the buyers that send the lead on the portal do not get an answer from the real estate agent. And that proportion of leads that is not answered is like 70%. It's crazy high. You don't even imagine it. So the whole thing about having a seller agent find, but also a buyer agent that is really going to help is something pretty new in Europe, something pretty basic in the United States. So I thought, oh, Masteos is the buyer's agent in Europe, especially for rental investment. Sounds super, super interesting. So that's what got me interested.
From everything I'm reading, the rental market industry sector in Spain's pretty hot at the moment. Is that right? Is that what you're seeing?
It's pretty hot, yeah. It's pretty hot. What basically happens if you zoom out and you just look at Spain, at the Spanish real estate market, the rental market from far, you see that in the numbers, there are 1.2 million properties that lack from the rental market. So in other words, there are many more tenants looking for a property than properties available to rent. There's a huge shortage. And if you look at things a bit historically, especially in Spain, I would say, and in Latin countries, also the case in Greece, 50 years ago, you had a lot of households of 6 people, 8 people, like many people in the same household. And nowadays, you have more and more people that either live alone or just 2 of them, like a lot of small households. And there's always more need for basically properties. And at the same time, as you know, in Spain, the market of building new properties is a bit distressed because it's complicated to build, etc. So the level of constructions per year is quite low compared to what it was before. So bottom line is the best opportunity is actually to focus, and that's what we do at Masteos, focus on the existing properties. So you buy an existing property, a second-hand home, you renovate it, you decorate it, you furnish it, and then you rent it. And that's what really is quite helpful to tenants, because when you bring a property which is renovated, which is furnished, which has everything included, you bring value to a lot of people that are actually looking on a market where there's not enough.
And so therefore you're working on behalf of the investor, the buyer. And I would assume part of the service that you're offering, aside from the full path of getting the property up to scratch to be suitable for rental and then managing that process, probably the most valuable part you do on a grander scale is identifying what properties are a good investment.
That's also a big part of it. So at the moment in Spain, we cover 3 cities. Okay, it's Madrid, Barcelona, and Valencia. As soon as possible, I want to come close to you, Alfredo, and I want to go to Malaga. But for now, we focus on these 3 cities. And the team, what they do, of course, we have many services, but one of these teams, one of the key teams is the property finders. The job of the property finders is to find the properties that would be a good fit for investors. So either properties that are a bit below market price, properties that, they're not that expensive. And if you rent them, for example, bedroom per bedroom with a separated contract, you can have a good yield, a good gross yield for that. Or maybe that if you destroy one wall, or here you can build a new room. So it's identifying a bit all of that. And for that, we use technology. And we work a lot with a company that I'm sure you know, which is Casafari.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
And another thing that we do, thanks to Casafari, is that there's a functionality by which you can look for properties that are not on Idealista, not on Fotocasa, so not on the leading property portals there, not on the equivalents of Rightmove and Zoopla for the guys that are British that watch this, or Realtor.com for the US and Zillow. So they're not on the main real estate websites. They're only on the real estate agency websites. We specifically focus on the properties that are off market, that nobody sees, and we focus on that. The property finder goes to the property, does the property visit and the 3D virtual tour using technology again, Matterport. So we have big cameras, we do all of it, the plans, the 3D, the dollhouse, and the estimation also of if you rent that property out, how much are you going to get in terms of income? So we do a market study of what's the price per bedroom, or what's the price of a 60-meter flat in Madrid, in Malasaña's neighborhood or whatever. And because of that, we do a full financial analysis so that as a buyer, as an investor, if you want tomorrow, especially living in Malaga, if you live in Malaga and tomorrow you want to buy in Valencia, Barcelona, or Madrid, you should be able to do that having a property detail page, which is super different from what you see on the real estate website, and which includes financial data, financial analysis, including at the very end, what's going to be the cash flow, what's going to be the yield, what's going to be the gross yield, the net yield, what's going to be everything, including the property tax that they call EB in Spain. Everything is included in that analysis. What typically happens is that you buy in a city that you've either lived in before, maybe you've studied in that city, or maybe you spend your holidays there. Usually you have an emotional connection to it. So let's say I live in London and I go every summer to Madrid or to Barcelona or to Valencia. I have a kind of a connection with that city, and I want to invest because obviously real estate is much cheaper in Spain than it is in London. So I want to do a rental investment. I cannot do it in London, perhaps, because I would need to invest maybe 500,000 euros. I can do it in Spain for 150. So I'm going to do it in Spain. But in most cases, I'm going to do it in a city that I have a connection, an emotional connection with. That's like the most typical. People that buy in a city that they've never ever been to is quite less common because it can be a lot more difficult. People that know, one of my friends that I was on the phone with yesterday lives in Barcelona. He's been there for 6 months. And now he wants to do a rental investment in Barcelona after having done one in Paris. And so what he wants from us, from Masteos, is he wants us to help him identify the neighborhoods in which it's best to invest. And then the property finder's job of finding the off-market opportunities is something that is super precious, because the alternative to that is spending your days and nights and weekends on Idealista. And it's a lot of time. We estimate that it's 250 hours if you want to do a rental investment for yourself. So a lot of people, they'd rather work with a company like Masteos, and it's also my case. I bought properties with Masteos. They'd rather invest that time, and in the weekend, they prefer to go to the beach and spend time with their families than to spend time visiting properties. So that's what we help.
I invest. I say, yes, I want that. When would I start to see some cash coming back? Typically, very general. It was like,
so just one thing that is important. Normally when you book a meeting with one of our salespeople, so you go to masteos.es for Spain, you book a meeting, you talk to someone. Normally you've made an offer and you've bought a property 2 months after.
Okay.
When I say that, it's what they call in Spain reserva. So the offer countersigned by both parties, seller and buyer. Once this is done, you have time to find the financing, take care of all of that. And the final signature is usually 3 months later on average. Once you've done that, then there are two cases. Either there's a renovation or there's nothing to do and you can rent it out directly. So if there's zero renovation, then potentially you rent it out just a month after. And the rental market is so tense that you find tenants instantly, especially in the three cities that I said we cover at Masteos, Barcelona, Madrid, and Valencia, because in these three cities, whenever you publish a rental listing on a property portal, you have 100 messages in 2 hours. It's pretty crazy. So finding a tenant is not the difficult part. So theoretically, having said all that, between the moment you make an offer and the moment you're going to get the first rental income, it can be as short as 3 months. So what we do for the renovation is that we act as the project manager of it all, so that things are very professional, especially because, as you know, a lot of people are afraid of doing a renovation in Spain, because especially if you live in the UK or the US or whatever, you live abroad, and maybe even if you live in Spain, you've heard stories about people that have tried to renovate a property and it's gone to hell, you know?
Yeah, and ends up taking 2 years to do something. Yes.
Exactly that. Yeah. So one of the big things is to try to select the right companies and to work with them very closely as a project manager. So that's also what we've internalized. And personally, for example, the 2 properties that I bought, I did a full renovation. So destroyed every wall and rebuilt everything from scratch, which is also good in some cases, because it enables you to bring it from the 19th century to the 21st.
When are you thinking of coming down to sunny Malaga to open up the service here?
We've started the European expansion at the start of 2022, so January. Belgium and Spain pretty much at the same time, starting things over. Now we're consolidating the 3 cities that I said, but Malaga is definitely going to be 2023. In France, at the moment, we cover 20 cities. In Spain, 3 cities, but of course, the vision is that we're going to cover 20 cities in Spain as well. There's not a world in which I don't imagine being in Malaga and Alicante at the very least, and of course, more after that in terms of cities. But investing in real estate in Spain is also something that I find quite interesting. We talk a lot about the recession, about inflation, about these kind of big words and what's happening at the moment. What is pretty sure is that the stock market is being a bit tumultuous at the moment, a bit unstable. For example, if you look at the American stock market, things have gone minus 30%, minus 40% since the start of the year. So it's a difficult moment to invest. You don't really know what's going to be stable or not. And in these moments, I love real estate because real estate is definitely like a kind of a place, that's more stable because people always need to live under a roof. So that market is more stable for me than stock market. The nationality and the location where you live does not matter. So yeah, you can be Swedish, you can live in Sweden or in Dubai or in Singapore and buy with Masteos, especially because 80% of the clients of Masteos buy the property without having visited the property. So distance works very well. Whenever you live more than 50 kilometers away from a place and you want to buy there, you need help from a buyer's agent like Masteos is. So yes, definitely our value proposition fits very well to the foreign buyers. That's pretty true. And also to any person who lives in Spain and perhaps they live in a certain city and they want to buy in another, or just like my friend I told you about that lives in Barcelona, they live in a city, but they still want to be accompanied by a buyer's agent. So definitely buyers from any country. The website at the moment is in English, Spanish, and French. Plan is we're pretty excited by Germany and United Kingdom because of the size of the markets. Spain is 600,000 transactions per year, between 500 and 600,000 in terms of residential transactions. Germany and UK are a bit more, like 700, 800,000. But then, of course, there are also markets like Portugal and Italy and Greece that sound exciting to us. There's a lot of investors that look for Southern European countries because when you buy a property, buying in a cheaper country, so typically you live in the UK or Sweden, buying in a cheaper country in Southern Europe is interesting. And also because it's potentially a house that you might project yourself in 10 years, in 20 years. So it's also kind of a pied-à-terre, like a place.
It's an investment you can live in if you want to.
Exactly. Again, like you said, a safe haven that you might actually take refuge in if you want. Barcelona and Madrid are like 4% plus in terms of gross yield, of course, depending on the neighborhoods. If you're a risk oriented person and not a risk averse person, you can go to more like poorest neighborhoods that are going to develop in the coming years, and then you can look for higher yields up to 7%, 8% in Madrid. But then it's neighborhoods that you don't see yourself living in necessarily. Barcelona and Madrid are extremely similar, and what is quite interesting is, like I said, I live in Paris. Paris is more like 2%, 2.5% of gross yield. So when you look at Madrid and Barcelona at 4.5% of gross yield, it's 2 times more profitable to invest in Barcelona and Madrid. And of course, in terms of economic stability, each of them is 20% of the Spanish GDP. So it's very stable cities to invest in. Facebook, the group Meta, they just announced they're going to hire 2,000 people in Madrid to build their European Center for Artificial Intelligence. So, these cities are always quite solid to invest in. And Valencia as well, I believe, is a great potential.
Not forgetting Malaga, of course.
Malaga, I've read articles about the next Silicon Valley, and I'm very excited about Malaga. We're going to go there for sure.
What we have in Malaga is you have Marbella on its doorstep as well. So if you want Puerto Banús and you want yachts, or you want to go up and do some snowboarding in Sierra Nevada, that's an hour away from Malaga, hour and a half.
You do that, no?
I used to. Now I like the fact that I can't. Well, you'll let us know for sure when it's time to come to Malaga.
No, I will let you know as the first person.
Fantastic.
Whenever we come to Malaga, especially, I might even call you to say, hey, I'm looking for a city manager in Malaga. Know someone? And I'm sure you're going to bring up a name.
Yeah, I'm sure I know somebody. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's great to catch up with you.
Thank you very much, Alfredo.
And let's keep in touch.
Yeah, we will for sure. Thank you, Alfredo.